Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 27th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining here in Salt Lake City. Glad everyone could be with us. We'll start off here with Mr. Thomas, Director Thomas, and Natasha Bailiff with a legislative update.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Mick Thomas, Director of Oil, Gas, and Mining, and thank you for your time today. Before I go into a few topics I'd like to update the board on, I want to say that here at my third meeting now, I've been with the agency almost 3 months, and I'm still really enjoying it. I don't know if it drops at any point, but this has been great fun. An excellent staff that we have at Oil, Gas, and Mining. Really appreciate their help so far. It's been critical. A few things I'd like to cover. First of all, the division is continuing to work through financial assurance discussions with oil and gas regarding the board's responsibility as well as the divisions. We understand that the board does set that policy, but we're working independently, I think, just one-on-one with some of the operators to make sure that we're on the same page. We want to affirm that we would really appreciate the ongoing support and participation from the board in any sort of rulemaking as well as financial assurance methods, and I look forward to having at least one of you represent the board in those discussions. Further, the division has a few interim studies that were not set forth in legislation this past session that I'd like to talk about. Natasha will be covering a lot of what happened during the legislative session, but outside of that, we are working on financial assurance instruments for mining operators. Should Utah's mineral bonding laws be evaluated and modernized to reflect current financial assurance options utilized by industries in other states? An evaluation of our laws could provide more ways for operators to meet financial assurance standards while continuing to protect Utah from financial risk. Secondly, we are considering the evaluation of the lithium potential for the Great Salt Lake in collaboration with the Utah Geological Survey. What is the economic viability of lithium extraction for the lake? What policies and laws should the state implement to protect the resource while enabling appropriate extraction? Again, this is going to be a collaborative effort with various divisions within the DNR. Personally, for the division, we are considering the development of a mentor program. We have a lot of new hires that have come on in oil and gas and mining over the past few months. I'm one of them. And we also have a lot of institutional knowledge as to how the state works and the best practices for oil, gas, and mining, and getting these folks together to help build the community that we are in the division, I think, is critical. We're working with HR along those processes. And I've also asked, finally, for hiring managers to be made aware of any internal candidates. Along the lines of hiring, we've had some folks who have applied. They didn't get an interview or obviously a position, and we just didn't know they had even shown interest. Personally, I want to affirm and encourage that sort of exposure from our staff to grow their careers. And so we've worked with HR to make sure that internal candidates are at least noticed and recognized for their efforts. That's basically most of my summary today before I hand it over to Natasha. Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
More of a comment. When I worked with the federal government, we had a knowledge management program, and that was to help facilitate the transition from the experts within each of the fields to transfer that knowledge onto the incoming employees and just to maintain that continuity. So it was more of a formal knowledge management type of program. So I think maybe what you're referring to is along those lines, and I applaud you for those efforts to maintain the continuity and maintain that level of knowledge that we so need in the division. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and let's talk later because I'm really interested in that program. Preservation of institutional knowledge is a problem with all state agencies and really in multiple states that I've been a part of. So if you don't mind, let's discuss that moving forward. It could really help us. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take over. I'm Natasha Bailiff. I'm the Legislative and Policy Coordinator for the division, and today I'm doing a legislative wrap-up for you. And to start off, this isn't on any of the slides, but we did have 3 building blocks that were approved. The first one was a $250,000 one-time appropriation for a mineral program process study. We're just going to look at the processes, see where we can improve. The second one is a $250,000 ongoing appropriation for our oil and gas inspector and auditor positions. And the third one is $723,000 one time for database upgrades. And then the bills that were passed, we're starting off with House Bill 295. This is produced water amendments. This one addresses regulation over produced water and addresses water rights issues. This one, we had $120,000 ongoing funded, and that resulted in a full-time position. I believe that one we are in the process of getting the job listed so that we can get someone hired. House Bill 353 is mining operations. This one moves the public comment period from during the large mining process. The public comment period was at the end of the process, and we asked for it to be moved up. So as soon as the division receives a completed application, that will start the public comment process, and that should streamline it not only for the division, but it should also make the public feel more included. We're not considering their comments at the end. It will be at the beginning, because a lot of times the public does have good input, and then we have to go back and change our tentative approval and get everything fixed. So hopefully this streamlines the process. This one we didn't have a fiscal impact on it, but we will need to create like a administrative checklist just to make sure the applications are completed before we start that public comment period. House Bill 373 is environmental quality amendments. This one was kind of thrown at us towards the end, and the bill does 2 different things. It addresses boards and commissions within DEQ, but then it also assigns OGM to verify that there have been pollution control facilities placed at properties under oil and, this is specifically for the oil and gas program. So when we're going out and doing inspections, we'll basically check a box and say, yep, there's a new one. This one we did have, let's see, $10,000 one time for programming, and then $150,000 ongoing to address rulemaking and staff time, just to make sure we can get those certificates out the door. Moving on, we have House Bill 433, brine amendments. This one allows for the designation of multiple mineral development, and it directs the division to conduct a study relating to brine. And that study will include evaluating current and potential regulation of brine mining operations. It will determine which state agencies have jurisdiction over the various activities related to brine mining operations. Will identify necessary safety measures, address spacing of brine wells, address multiple mineral development, and any other issues that the division finds relevant. We have House Bill 452, carbon capture amendments. This one was a pretty simple bill. It repeals 2 different funds and replaces them with a carbon dioxide storage fund. And this one also addresses the board's authority to impose fines and then put them into that carbon dioxide storage fund. That one didn't have a fiscal note. That one will have a little bit of rulemaking that we'll need to do, but we are incorporating it into the carbon sequestration rule that we are working on. And finally, House Bill 502, critical infrastructure and mining. This one requires the division to conduct a study relating to critical infrastructure material operations, and it also outlines who the division will be coordinating with. This one we got $500,000 one time to pay for the study. We are in the beginning process of that, and let's see, I also have everything that we need to cover with this one. This one's a pretty big study. So we'll do an inventory of current operations, including the number and location of operations, levels of production, the extent of which materials meet UDOT standards, an inventory of new operations that may be created or operations that may be expanded, and we will be considering zoning and market supply. We'll assess projected future demand, including effects on residential and commercial development and planned projects. There will be oh my gosh, I'm stumbling. an analysis of impacts on local infrastructure and possible mitigation, an analysis of regulatory requirements faced by operators, and whether or not operations should be licensed, permitted, or otherwise regulated, and any other issues the division finds relevant. It's a really big study that we're going to have completed by, I believe, the November interim. But that's the update that I have for you. If you have any questions, I am happy to address them.
Have you been given additional money to conduct that? That's a big, long list. Do we have the personnel to do that by November?
We are going to be leaning very heavily on all of our sister agencies in the division or in the department. We've been talking a lot with UGS to figure things out. Am I missing anyone that?
No, you're correct. Chairman, thank you, Natasha. We are going to be working, as she said, with a few of the other agencies as well as divisions within the DNR. We're going to do our best to endeavor. We're going to endeavor to get the most done that we can by the interim committee in November. If it's not entirely finalized, because you may understand this kind of study could go on for years and be incredibly robust and detailed, it's going to be how much can we get done in the next 4 to 6 months. It's not so much a money issue as much as it is a time and people and coordination issue of really developing a concise but well-defined scope for everyone to follow. We're in the process of doing that now. We have started communication specifically with the Utah Geological Survey so that as of May 1, when the money becomes available, we'll be able to hit the ground, and we will do the best we can. And I'm optimistic. Everybody on staff is very excited. Well, I don't know what's excited, but looking forward to the study. It's just about time. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you, Mr. Director, the point person, or have you appointed someone to kind of gather all this data together?
I'm the point person, okay? Now, am I delegating heavily to my Deputy Director, Dana Dean? You bet, right? But we have been part of some of the meetings as we discuss moving forward, but I'm the point person on this.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. So on that, is it across the whole, oil and gas and minerals? When you say your department, is it across, you say various agencies, but is it focused more in the minerals part or oil and gas? Or?
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask if you were specifically asking about House Bill 502.
Yes.
That one would just be like aggregate mining.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question is like on 353, as far as the public notice, well, when does that start? When is that implemented after?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. The 353, the public notice, when does that start to become implemented as far as the process?
Usually the bills, what's the word that I'm looking for? They become effective in May, so it would be around that time.
Okay.
Natasha, on the infrastructure bill, was the division involved at all in the pre-planning of this, before this bill came up? Were you involved in it to have input?
Do you want to take that, or do you want me?
Thank you. Thanks, Natasha. Chairman, members of the board. The division was monitoring this during the session as it developed. In the latter weeks of the session, the bill was significantly rewritten to put the onus on the division, and we at that point engaged with the representatives who were driving it and worked with them to make sure that it was a manageable scope and goal. So once it became, was handed off to us, we worked well with the legislature, and it turned into a very positive experience, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Thomas.
Who introduced that bill?
It
Who was
was
sponsoring it?
Representative Casey Snyder.
Any other questions from the board?
Okay.
Back to you, Director.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. That's all I have today. I appreciate the time, and again, I'm happy to talk with any of you as I continue to reach out and meet some of you, and thank you very much.
Just checking here, we are going to have a board training lunch this afternoon. It'll be held as time allows during a working lunch in our room over there, 1010. The working lunch session is open to the public. We're just going to discuss how to be good board members. So if any of you are really into that or have any input, please feel free to come. We'll be just next door. Now is the time we usually take a few minutes for any public comment that we have. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for any reason? Seeing none, I do have one thing that I would like to talk to informally to the attorneys and their clients, and it's regarding submission of revised exhibits. All of a sudden, we're having a plethora of revised exhibits. We got 5 just since Monday. And when you file revised exhibits, that causes division time, approval time from me, council time to review it, and Julianne's time in doing all of the preparation that she has to go through because it's a very formal process. And so I understand that sometimes revised exhibits are necessary or required by the division maybe, but we're not getting enough time to review them. If there's simply typos or things, I put the onus on the clients to submit error-free exhibits the first time. I mean, these should be checked and double-checked before they come to us. And so I'm just asking that everyone be aware and be conscientious about submitting them when they need to be done and for what reason, to try to streamline this process. I mean, in the end, it could result in a rule that says you can't submit things more than a week in advance or something, and I don't want to go there. I just would like to have you think twice if you need a revised exhibit, if it's being required, or some other way to address it, because it's causing kind of a backup here on the approval end. So that's all I have to say about that. I think the way we're structured now, we're going to move right into the formal part of the agenda. I don't know if everyone's got a revised agenda, but we've moved up one matter, and it's this one, right? Yes, it is. So we are going to start off with the matter about Lisbon Mine. Yes. Okay.
I have to switch the YouTube link.
Oh, okay. 5 minutes. Everybody gets a break.